From Vivian Wilson changing her name to escape Elon Musk's shadow, to Brent Redstone taking his media mogul father to court, and the Getty sons facing J. Paul Getty's cold indifference. These are billionaire kids who turned their backs on their parents. Vivian Jenna Wilson is Elon Musk's oldest daughter. She's also the one who legally severed herself from him in writing. In 2022, at 18, she filed a petition in Los Angeles County Superior Court to change her name and gender marker. In that petition, she stated she no longer wished to be related to her biological father in any way, shape, or form. That's not a tabloid quote. That's a legal document. Wilson is one of the world's richest men's children, and she's told multiple outlets she wants nothing from him. Elon Musk has a fractured relationship with daughter Vivian Wilson, and Wilson has made it clear through the years that she has no interest in patching things up with her billionaire dad. The model and influencer has been estranged from the Tesla CEO since 2020, when she came out as transgender. To understand how it got here, you have to go back to the marriage that produced her. Wilson is one of Musk's 14 children, born in 2004 to Musk and his first wife, Justine, who were married from 2000 to 2008, and the exes also share Wilson's twin brother, Griffin, along with triplets Kai, Saxon, and Damien. Vivian grew up inside one of the wealthiest households on the planet, but according to her, wealth didn't translate into presents. She said her father was often absent growing up, and according to Wikipedia's summary of her public statements, Wilson stated that her father was often absent, cold, quick to anger, uncaring, and narcissistic. She's also said he often harassed her for displaying femininity and queerness. Musk has a different version. He's described her childhood self in his own words, saying she was born gay and slightly autistic, and used to pick out clothes for me to wear like a jacket and tell me it was fabulous. Wilson rejects that framing outright. She says it's an attempt to paint her as something she isn't. The break became public the year she came out. By 2022, she'd made it legal, and by the time she spoke to Teen Vogue in 2025, there was no ambiguity left. She confirmed she hadn't spoken to her father in almost half a decade, and added just 2 words after, "Thank God." Musk hasn't stayed quiet either. He's floated an explanation that lands somewhere between political theory and personal defense. In 2022, he told the Financial Times, "It's full-on communism and a general sentiment that if you're rich, you're evil. Our relationship may change, but I have very good relationships with all of my other children." He's also in conversations with biographer Walter Isaacson and psychologist Jordan Peterson, pointed to outside political influence as the reason for the rift, blaming what he's called neo-Marxist influences, a label Wilson flatly rejects. Wilson has pushed back hard against the idea that she owes her father deference because of his wealth or fame. Asked why she isn't scared of crossing one of the most powerful men alive, she told Teen Vogue, "Why would I feel scared of him? Oh, he has so much power. Nah, nah, nah. I don't give a F. Why should I be scared of this man?" She followed it with a line aimed squarely at the idea that his money should matter to her. "I don't give a F how much money anyone has. I don't. I really don't. He owns Twitter." Okay, congratulations. She's also rejected a theory that's floated around online, that her transition is somehow the reason Musk moved further right politically. Musk himself hasn't exactly discouraged that idea. In 2026, responding to a post claiming he never would have gotten involved in politics if not for her, he replied with one word: true. Wilson called that framing insane, telling Teen Vogue, "It's such a convenient narrative that the reason he turned right is because I'm a fingtenny, and that's just not the case." Him going further on the right, "Make sure you put further in there, is not because of me." That's insane. Rather than lean on the Musk name, she's building something separate. In March 2025, she featured on the cover of Teen Vogue, and later that year she signed with the talent agency CAA, having returned to Los Angeles for modeling after dropping out from Temple University in Japan. She's walked runways, fronted campaigns, and turned her estrangement into part of her public identity rather than something to hide. She's also said the assumption that she has access to her father's fortune is wrong. She has said that people imagine she has huge sums at her disposal, while in reality, she lives far closer to an ordinary young adult trying to build a career, and she is not interested in becoming extremely wealthy. Even now, years into the estrangement, the split still makes headlines whenever a reporter tries to bring it up. In June 2026, at a fashion event in Ibiza, a reporter asked her about her father mid-interview. Vivian Jenna Wilson was there celebrating an anniversary event, when, after a brief pause, she simply replied, "Okay," before ending the interview and walking away from the cameras. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just left. That's basically been her answer for 6 years running. Now, let's go to Australia, where the fight isn't over how a father raised his daughter. It's over billions of dollars of iron ore, and it pits a mother against 2 of her own children. Gina Rinehart is Australia's richest person, sitting on a fortune built off her father's mining empire, Hancock Prospecting. Her son, John Hancock, who legally took his grandfather's surname, and her daughter, Bianca Rinehart, have accused their own mother of defrauding them out of billions tied to one of the most valuable mining assets in the country. This isn't a quiet family disagreement. It's been fought in the Western Australia Supreme Court. The asset at the center of it all is Hope Downs, a mining complex named after Gina's mother. Hope Downs is very personal to the Rineharts. It's named for Hope Hancock, and Gina took title over the site in one of her first actions as executive chairman after her father died. The site produces enormous royalties every year, and it's the thing John and Bianca say was stolen from them. Before we get to the lawsuit, it helps to understand the family that produced it. Conflict runs generations deep here. Gina's own relationship with her father, Lang Hancock, fractured over an inheritance dispute after her mother died. The same year Gina remarried, her mother Hope Hancock died, and when Gina chose to contest her mother's will, the once close father-daughter bond broke and bled out. What followed reads like a script written by someone who'd never believe it if they saw it in a movie. Lang Hancock married his Filipino housekeeper and built her a castle, and father and daughter exchanged angry letters that would later surface in court, with Gina calling him a laughingstock, and Lang calling her a slothful, vindictive, and devious baby elephant. When Lang Hancock died in 1992, he left behind a company in disarray. Gina spent the following decades rebuilding it into a global mining empire. But according to a family friend quoted in the press, he left a hot mess of a broken empire behind him, and as one associate put it, Gina didn't sell out her birthright or allow it to be spent or snatched away. She held on to what her father built. The problem is her own children say she held on to too much, including what was supposed to be theirs. John and Bianca's claim goes back to a trust their grandfather set up before he died. John Hancock and Bianca Rinehart claim to be the rightful owners of Hancock Prospecting's 50% stake in Hope Downs, as left to them in 1992 by their grandfather in the family trust. The numbers involved aren't small. Hancock Prospecting accounts detail over $1 billion paid to family members in one recent year alone, while the company has reserved close to $5 billion in Hope Downs due to the ongoing legal dispute. John and Bianca want that asset transferred to them now. Their mother's side rejects the accusation entirely. The legal language used in court is brutal. John Hancock's lawyers told the Western Australia Supreme Court that when he confronted his mother about the trust, he was met with a barrage of lies, threats, and intimidation to prevent him finding out she had defrauded him and his siblings of the inheritance, and that she sought to devalue and destroy the family trust to increase her personal wealth at expense of her children. His lawyer went further, alleging a cover story was constructed for the public. This fraud was subsequently covered up by Gina with a false narrative to her children and the public generally that Hancock Prospecting's success and her own personal success was simply the product of hard work rather than dishonesty. His lawyer said in court, "For years, none of this reached the public at all." John and Bianca had signed confidentiality agreements years earlier, promising to keep family disputes out of the courtroom's public record. Until recently, the arbitration between Gina and her children was confidential due to deeds Bianca and John had signed agreeing to deal with family disputes out of the public eye. It only became public once those agreements broke down. spilling a private, decades-long family war into open court documents anyone could read. What makes this fight different from a normal inheritance dispute is scale. This isn't two siblings arguing over a house or a stock portfolio. It's a fight over one of the most productive iron ore complexes on Earth, run by a woman worth close to $40 billion, being challenged by her own son and daughter, who say she cheated them out of what their grandfather intended for them before he died. Whatever the courts eventually decide, the relationship between Gina Rinehart and two of her children has already been laid bare in public filings that neither side can take back. Before Vivian Wilson and before the Rinehart lawsuits, there was an 18-year-old college freshman who sued her own father for $6 billion and won a settlement that broke apart one of the biggest fortunes in America. Liesl Pritzker was a Pritzker, heir to the family behind Hyatt Hotels. She'd already had a childhood most kids only see in movies. She starred in A Little Princess and appeared alongside Harrison Ford in Air Force One under the name Liesl Matthews. But behind the movie sets, her family was falling apart. Liesl's parents, Irene Dryberg and Robert Pritzker, had divorced, and their animosity for one another viciously tore through Liesl's childhood. Then in 2002, while she was a freshman at Columbia University, she made the fight public in the most direct way possible. Liesl, then studying African history at Columbia University in New York and appearing in a Broadway play called Vincent in Brixton, filed a $6 billion lawsuit against her own family, including her father. She was, at the time, 18 years old. The claim was straightforward. She said her father and her cousins had cut her and her brother out of trust funds that were supposed to be theirs. In 2002, Liesl filed a $6 billion lawsuit against her father and other relatives, alleging they schemed on her inheritance, believing they had looted her and her brother out of $1 billion of their trust funds. Her brother Matthew joined the case not long after. Liesl Pritzker Simmons and her brother Matthew Pritzker sued their family for a chunk of its Hyatt Hotels fortune. This wasn't a small family business. The Pritzkers controlled one of the largest private fortunes in the United States, built by Liesl's uncles. Their uncle Jay Pritzker founded the hotel chain, and their uncle Donald Pritzker managed and developed it, while their father Robert Pritzker ran the family's industrial conglomerate, Marmon Group. Filing suit against a family like that, as a teenager, made headlines across the country. It also invited every kind of scrutiny imaginable into a fortune built partly on the very trusts she claimed had been raided. The lawsuit dragged on for years and got worse before it got better. The details of that lawsuit and the Pritzkers' inner turmoil made splashy fodder for magazines and tabloids, and demonstrated how quickly even the best-led families can fall apart after the death of their principal. During the litigation, Liesl stepped away entirely, leaving the country to put distance between herself and the fight. After the conclusion of the lawsuit, she moved to India, where she volunteered at a nursery school and taught yoga to heroin addicts. In January 2005, more than 2 years after she filed, the case finally settled. In January 2005, Liesl Pritzker and her brother Matthew reached a settlement with their father Robert Pritzker and other family members, resolving the inheritance dispute, with the agreement providing the siblings with approximately $900 million in total, equating to roughly $450 million each after taxes and fees, drawn from family holdings including Hyatt Hotels assets and other investments. The fallout didn't stop with a check. It restructured the entire family empire. The settlement precipitated the fragmentation of the Pritzker family's unified empire, which had been structured around irrevocable trusts established by founder Jay Pritzker to minimize estate taxes and maintain collective control over a portfolio valued at over $15 billion. A separate account put the breakup even more starkly, noting the litigation spent years in the courts and led in part to the breakup of the Pritzker family's business empire into 11 parts. What Liesl did after the money landed says a lot about how she wanted to define herself apart from the fight. She didn't disappear into a life of leisure. She said flatly, "I didn't earn this money, and I'll be damned if I'm going to screw it up." She co-founded Blue Haven Initiative with her husband, Ian Simmons, an investment firm focused on social impact projects in places like sub-Saharan Africa. Liesl co-founded and runs impact investing firm Blue Haven Initiative with her husband, Ian Simmons. She's also used her position to push political ideas that cut directly against her own financial interests. In 2019, she joined a group of ultra-wealthy signatories publicly asking presidential candidates to support a wealth tax. In June 2019, Pritzker-Simmons joined a group of 17 other wealthy signatories in signing a letter to the 2020 presidential candidates in support of a wealth tax. She told the BBC bluntly, "We just wanted to go on the record and say, please don't be timid about tax reform because you're afraid that this class of people is going to get upset. It's time for us who are blessed with unusual financial success or luck to contribute more to our common good and common future." Her father, Robert Pritzker, died in 2011. By most public accounts, the relationship between them was never fully repaired the way some of the other family disputes in this video eventually were. What started as a legal filing from a college freshman ended up rewriting the financial structure of an entire American dynasty. And it started because a daughter decided she'd rather sue her father than stay quiet about what she believed he'd taken from her. If Liesl Pritzker's fight redrew one family fortune, Brent Redstone's fight did something similar to a media empire that controlled CBS, Viacom, MTV, and Paramount. And unlike some of the others on this list, Brent Redstone didn't just sue his father. He walked away from him almost entirely. Sumner Redstone built one of the largest media empires in American history. By the mid-2000s, the 84-year-old Redstone had amassed a personal fortune of about $8 billion, with an entertainment empire among the world's largest, including CBS, Paramount Pictures, Showtime, MTV, Comedy Central, and Nickelodeon. But the empire came with a cost. Redstone was entangled in a bitter public feud with his children and estranged from practically every relative but his wife. Brent was Sumner's only son, a Harvard-trained lawyer just like his father. Like his father, Sumner's son Brent was a Harvard-trained lawyer, and their father-son relationship was difficult, growing increasingly estranged over time. The rupture started with something almost mundane: a divorce. When Sumner's marriage to Brent's mother ended, he needed his children to hand over voting control of their shares to protect his grip on the company. By 1998, Phyllis wanted out, and since losing half of National Amusements to her would dilute Sumner's power, he needed more voting power to maintain control after the divorce, so he asked his children to sign over the voting power of their shares to him. Brent refused, but his sister Shari agreed, provoking the next generation of Redstone sibling rivalry. Brent's refusal had consequences. Just a few years later, his father removed him from the company entirely. In 2003, Sumner removed Brent from the Viacom board, seemingly in retaliation for Brent's lack of cooperation during the divorce. Being pushed out of the family business wasn't the end of it. It was the start of open legal warfare. In 2006, Brent sued his father, looking to force a breakup of his father's empire for unfairly shutting him out of the company. Newsweek's reporting on the dispute at the time captured just how far things had gone. The magazine described a father who'd alienated nearly everyone close to him, writing that the split with his daughter Shari was hardly the only conflict Sumner had lately. His son, Brent, wiped his hands of the family business that spring after suing his dad and sister for allegedly freezing him out. Settling for as much as $250 million, that settlement is worth sitting with. Brent didn't come back into the fold after the money changed hands. He took the buyout and left. Brent Redstone sued his father for his share of the family fortune in 2006, saying Sumner preferred Shari. And after the lawsuit settled, Redstone successfully bought out his son's shares of the family business for roughly $240 million. The two were reported to be estranged. By most accounts, Brent never returned to National Amusements, never rejoined the family business, and effectively cut ties with the empire his grandfather founded. The dysfunction didn't start with Brent, and it didn't stop with him either. Sumner's own falling out with his father over control of the theater business decades earlier had set the template. Sumner's brother Edward believed he was frozen out by his father and brother and seems to have considered his father a domineering, even terrifying figure. When his mother injected herself into a 1972 family blow-up, he wrote her, "I don't mean to be unkind, but you are the result of receiving years of unbelievable cruelty from Dad." Family litigation became something close to tradition. Redstone and his kin have long preferred litigation over other means of conflict resolution. For more than 3 decades, Redstone siblings have been suing siblings, and children have been suing parents. Sumner's relationship with his daughter Sherry followed a similar pattern of collapse and partial repair, though it never reached the finality of Brent's exit. A period of estrangement between Sherry Redstone and her combative father ended with a reconciliation before his death. But that reconciliation never extended to Brent. When Sumner died, the obituary lines told the story on their own. He was survived by his son, Brent Redstone, and daughter, Sherry Redstone. And it was Sherry, not Brent, who inherited control of the empire and issued the public statement mourning her father. Brent's own 2 daughters, meanwhile, have neither of them been involved in the family business. An entire branch of one of America's biggest media dynasties simply stepped outside the walls and stayed there. The last entry on this list goes back further than any of the others, to a man many historians consider the original blueprint for the distant billionaire father, J. Paul Getty, the oil magnate who was, for a time, the richest private citizen in the world. Getty built an empire out of oil leases across the Middle East and became famous for 2 things in equal measure: his fortune and his refusal to part with any of it, even for his own family. He had 5 sons across multiple marriages, and by most public accounts, he was rarely present for any of them. He ran his businesses from a mansion in England and reportedly installed a payphone for guests rather than let them make free calls, a detail that became shorthand over the decades for exactly how he treated money, even inside his own household. His son, George Getty Thickent, worked directly under him for years, running day-to-day oil operations and trying, by most accounts, to win his father's approval, the way a lot of children of demanding parents do, by outworking everyone else in the room. George died in 1973, under circumstances that were never fully resolved to the public's satisfaction, following years of pressure inside the family business. It was one of the darkest chapters the Getty name would carry, and it happened while his father was still very much alive and still very much in control of the fortune that had shaped both their lives. Another son, J. Paul Getty Jr., took a different path entirely. Rather than fight for a place inside his father's businesses, he drifted away from them, moved abroad, and struggled for years with addiction that strained what was left of his relationship with his father. For long stretches, father and son were barely in contact, separated as much by geography as by the coldness that had defined the family patriarch's approach to parenting. The distance between them became one of the more talked-about family rifts among Europe's wealthy circles at the time, precisely because the father at the center of it had more money than almost anyone alive, and seemed unwilling to spend any of it on repairing what had broken at home. Perhaps the most infamous moment tying the Getty name to family estrangement wasn't even about a son, it was about a grandson. When Getty's grandson was kidnapped and held for ransom, the elder Getty initially refused to pay, reportedly saying he had 14 grandchildren, and if he paid one ransom, he'd be paying 14 more. He eventually negotiated the amount down and structured what he did pay as a loan to his own son, complete with interest. That single decision, more than any speech or headline, became the encapsulation of what it meant to grow up as a Getty. Enormous wealth, sitting one phone call away, and a patriarch unwilling to let sentiment touch the ledger. By the time Getty died in 1976, the family he left behind was scattered across continents, addiction clinics, boardrooms, and courtrooms, several of them barely speaking to the branch of the family that had inherited control. The fortune outlived the relationships that were supposed to come with it. Decades later, his descendants would go on to rebuild public lives of their own, in film, in fashion, in philanthropy. largely by stepping outside the very structures their grandfather had built. In much the same way, the Redstones, the Pritzkers, the Reinhardts, and now the Musks have found their own children doing the same thing, taking the name, taking sometimes the money, and leaving the parent who built it behind. 5 families, 5 fortunes, 5 kids who decided that being born into that kind of money didn't mean they owed the parent behind it their loyalty, their silence, or their presence. Some of them fought it out in court and took a settlement. Some of them just stopped picking up the phone. Either way, the pattern holds across every single one of these stories. The bigger the fortune, the harder it seems to be for the people in